Hello. Welcome to Twisted, Not Your Mama's Book Club, the podcast.
I'm Brandy, and that's Sarah.
I'm Sarah.
She's Sarah.
So this week on our mini Twisty, we're going to
talk about some twisted shit.
We're going to take a very dark turn over here into left field and probably not talk about something that's really funny.
Not at all. I've tried to put some humor into this. I'm having a hard time coming up with some.
So today we are going to talk about capital punishment.
Or the lack thereof.
So we got this idea from Ted.
Ted, thank you, Teddy Bundy.
Thank you, Ted, from part 2.
For all that you've done for the Twisted Motherfuckers.
So, after Ted, we decided to tackle this monster topic. So, hopefully this will still be a really short episode, but we got a lot of ground to cover.
There's a lot of information, guys.
Yep. So, let's just start with capital punishment in the world, right? So, according to Amnesty International and an article that was written by BBC, which is the British Broadcasting Channel,
they got some good shows over there.
They do. I love Downton Abbey.
Right.
You know, there's a Downton Abbey movie coming out.
I heard.
Yep.
What about Sherlock?
That's good too.
With Cumberbatch? Mm-hmm. Oh God, I fucking love that show. Ended wrong. Yeah. Like most shows do. Anyway, continue.
British. So, according to BBC, there are 106 countries where corporal. I kept doing that all day yesterday too. It's not
corporal punishment is when you touch my kid in school. I'll bust your face.
That's when you get beaten with a cane.
Yeah, no, that's not happening.
Capital punishment. 106 countries. Capital punishment is abolished completely.
Yes.
There are 7 where it's used in only serious crimes in exceptional circumstances, such as war crimes. There are 29 where there are death penalty laws, but executions have not occurred in more than 10 years. And then there's 56 countries where they either have death penalty laws or there are no official laws on the matter. They're like, I'm not even going to touch that with a 10-foot fucking pole. We're one of the 56, the United States is. So in the U.S., there are currently 29 states with the death penalty. That means 21 states where there is not the death penalty. In 1972, the Supreme Court actually suspended capital punishment, saying that it was unconstitutional and cruel and unusual.
I just want to know who was sitting on that court.
I don't know.
I'm not. I mean, we could research that, guys. If you know anyone who was sitting on that court, or you want to chime in on us, please email us. I just want to know, at what point did the Supreme Court have the right to judge which each individual state decided was right or wrong?
Well, it was in the Constitution. Then they have the right to judge upon it.
Well, I understand that, but...
And cruel and unusual punishment is in the Constitution, so they declared that it was... But anyway, 4 years later, in 1976, they reversed that.
That's a good year.
That the death penalty was constitutional.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we're going to break down a couple of... We're not going to obviously go into death penalty laws in every single state.
That's a lot.
Brandy's going to talk about some of the bigger states, and then I'm going to end with Texas because...
That's our land.
Texas, you...
Glorious bastard, you. You anyway, glorious bastard.
Okay, so Brandy, you're up. You can talk about Florida, or not Florida.
Florida is the belt buckle of the death penalty. Hey, Teddy, rush right headlong into that bitch. Also, Florida's where everyone's fucked up. I don't know if you started that trend or if you just embody that trend. Thank you, Bundy. I want to talk about the state I was raised in.
Utah or California?
I was raised in Utah.
Okay, there you go.
God bless my sweet soul. And then we're going to talk about California.
Okay.
And then we're going to bring it back home.
To Texas.
To the south.
Yep.
Where everything's better. Oh, that's a commercial for a different place.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about Utah. I'm going to tell y'all my little background history in Utah. I was moved to Utah when I was about 9 years old. I was raised on the West Coast and the rich upper desert part of Nevada. So when I was moved to Utah as a 9-10-year-old child, it was culture shock. I was moved to a very small town in southern Utah. It was very religious dominated. When we learned history, we learned about the settlers of the LDS Church. So there's a lot of history missing from my little sweet brain that I should have learned in normal U.S. history. So let's talk about Utah. Utah is one of the states that still today shoots your ass. Also known as firing squad.
Yep.
When they originally started execution, it started way early in Utah history, like in the 1800s, okay? The Mormon pioneers left the state of, where'd they leave in the Midwest, my love? Iowa. My sweet, Swedish Midwest love. Iowa. When they decided to branch out for religious purposes, they actually had the death penalty. They actually started, this is funny, the death penalty in 1850, and it was a Ute Indian in the Utah Territory. He was beheaded. So the original Utah capital punishment was with beheading. They stepped up over the years. They've moved to firing squad, where 12 men stand in line. I have an uncle who participated in this on my dad's side. He won't really talk about it, but yeah, I mean, this isn't a super fun topic, guys. I mean, like, we're not putting our lipstick and our heels on and partying into this one. This is kind of serious, unfortunately. He wouldn't really talk about it, but Utah is one of those states where you can pick how you would like to die. So you have the firing squad, which my uncle did a few times. Mm-hmm. You have the electric chair. That was botched several times. In Utah, there was hanging for many, many, many years in the state of Utah. In 1958, the 21st hanging of a prisoner happened 1958. And then they went to lethal injection. That kind of was botched several times in the state of Utah. So you get to pick. So let's say you've killed 5 people.
What would you pick?
God, I don't know. What would you pick?
Firing squad.
That seems to be the one that everyone likes.
Everyone likes firing squads.
Well, right. There's several different people who have been put to the executioner's hatchet, let's say, who has picked the firing squad. 12 men stand in the line. Mm-hmm. If you don't know how the firing squad works, one of them, they're all expert marksmen. One of them has an actual bullet. Mm-hmm. All 12 of them aim for the head, and all 12 fire. The one that has the actual bullet does not know which.
They don't know they have the bullet.
Yeah, he doesn't know who he is. Because if you walk away from a 12-man firing squad and you are the one who put the bullet in the person, you may have some residual PTSD. I don't know. You're like, your therapy dog has a therapy dog.
I imagine they also do it so there's no, like, retaliation against a single person.
You don't really know, so the family can't come after you. Yes. So that tends to be the best one, or the most chosen one. The electrical chair, Utah hasn't been super successful with that.
Super painful.
Yeah, Sparky, old Sparky, as we like to call him in Florida. I'm not super sure, but let's talk about the last time anyone was executed in my hometown, yes, in Utah. Let's talk about the last time someone was executed in the state of Utah.
Okay.
This guy had it against him from the get-go. We have notes. This is a long topic. It's full of information, like Sarah said. Ronnie Lee Gardner.
Okay.
He was born in 1961.
Okay.
So, yeah. He was born in Salt Lake City, Utah. Okay, when I grew up in southern Utah, Salt Lake was cosmopolitan. They had bars. Okay. Let that resonate for a minute.
Okay.
Salt Lake City, Utah had bars. Where I grew up, bars were illegal.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. You had to bring your own bottle into a drinking establishment, pay the state tax, and then pay the tax to sit into the drinking establishments and drink the already paid state tax.
Okay.
Yeah. So they had bars. So Salt Lake City was very like, whoo, big city. Okay. He was born there. He had a rough childhood.
What did he do?
That's what they do.
No, what did he do?
He killed a couple people in a robbery.
Okay.
And then he escaped and he shot a Salt Lake City police officer in the face.
Gotcha. That would have landed him the death penalty in Texas, too.
Absolutely. Yeah, he had a rough life, guys. He was the last person to be killed. He actually had there's a lot of bad things. We're not going to talk about him. Let's just don't delve into him.
Okay.
He was the last person executed, Ronnie Lee Gardner, in the state of Utah by firing squad in 2010.
Okay. What about California?
We're bringing up California. And I don't mean to pick on California. Sarah, back me up here.
I love California.
She loves California. Keith, you love California?
Love it.
Love it. Glenn's joining us today. He's quietly reading a book in the background. Glenn, how do you feel about California?
Glenn lived in California.
It was a fun place to live for a while.
It's a fun place to live. So the problem with California is amongst the 20 states that don't believe in the death penalty in the United States of America.
Okay.
I think each state has the right to choose. I think,
And that state chose not to.
And chose not to. My problem with the state of California choosing not to support the death penalty, it all rolls into one particular name. And if anybody wants to help me out here, Sarah, would you like to guess which name it is I have in mind with the state of California not wanting to invoke?
Well, there's so many murderers in California.
Sweet Jesus. That was the golden state in the golden years.
Guessing you're talking about Charles Manson.
Why?
I don't know.
Charles Manson.
Charles Manson.
I respect California's right to choose if capital punishment is right or wrong for them.
Mm-hmm.
I respect their decision. What I do not respect is the fact that Charles Manson lived on death row, which I don't know if y'all are familiar with the prison system, is bougie. General population, you don't get TV. You don't get books. You don't get the upper class food. So when you're put on death row in each different state, or life without parole, as it's known in the state of California, you get better toiletries. You get more exercise time. You get free range of libraries, computers, television. You're living in a high class upper prison system. People like Charles Manson, Teddy Bundy, Hitler ended his own shit. Charles Manson, Hitler sit down that same road for me. You don't deserve that, you pieces of shit. You really don't deserve to live a better life than America's homeless population, which have mental health issues, okay? Which need help. You don't deserve to be better off. You've killed, you've mangled, you've tortured. I'm trying not to be angry. Charles Manson pisses me the fuck off. Him and Teddy Bundy.
So we're never going to read Helter Skelter.
We're reading Helter Skelter. That bitch was something.
Can't. We're going to have to get Brandy Valium.
Never tried that.
Brandy on Valium or Brandy on a shit ton of marijuana.
Hey, that's one thing California got right.
Did you see? So it's legal in Texas now to have less than 0.3% THC, whatever it is, on you. And lots of police stations and stuff are coming out and saying we don't have the technology to test that. So if you have less than 4 ounces on you, whatever, it's fine.
I'm going to take everything Sarah says about the state of Texas.
Unintended consequence.
Completely as law.
Yeah,
but if Sarah said it,
it's true.
It's true.
So speaking of Texas, are you?
Let's talk about. Oh, I could go on for 100 years about California. Let's talk about Texas. Land that I love.
That's how you know we're not the ones that sang the intro song, because it does not sound like that.
It does not sound like this fucked up shit.
Okay, so Texas. First official execution occurs in 1819 with the execution of George Brown for piracy.
I'm sorry, what?
Piracy.
How was he?
I don't know.
Was he up and down the Houston coast?
I guess.
What was he doing? Like, hey, bitch, pull over. I want your rum.
Not know. So prior to Texas becoming a state in 1845, there were 8 executions. So prior to Texas' statehood in 1846, there were 8 executions by hanging that were carried out.
Did they go well?
As far as I know.
They didn't botch them?
I don't know.
Okay.
The last hanging occurred in 1923 in Brazoria County. That prisoner's name was Nathan Lee. In 1923, Texas law changed and prisoners were required to be executed by electric chair. And then in 1972, the Supreme Court declared that the death penalty was unconstitutional. That was cruel and unreasonable punishment. But then in 1976, they declared that it was constitutional again. But another execution did... Okay, so even though the Supreme Court declared that... I did it again. Corporal punishment. Capital punishment. So, in 1972, the Supreme Court declares that the death penalty is unconstitutional because it's considered cruel and unusual punishment. And a whole bunch of...
It's only cruel and unusual punishment if it's botched.
Yeah, that would be pretty painful.
Yeah.
Yep. So, 52 inmates at that time had their sentences changed to life imprisonment in Texas.
Taxpayer money.
Yeah. But then in 1976, when capital punishment was declared constitutional again...
And do you know what month that was?
I don't.
Okay.
Nope. Another execution did not occur in Texas until 1982. And then in 1982, Charles Brooks Jr. became the first person in the world to be executed by lethal injection. So in Texas, there are 9 types of murders that can result in the death penalty.
This should be fun.
So the first one is the murder... It's a murder of a public safety officer who is acting in lawful discharge of an official duty and who the person knows is a public safety officer. So any police officer, EMT, fireman, if they're in uniform or they're not in uniform and you know that they are a police officer and you murder them, death penalty.
Oh, absolutely. You cannot kill our boys in blue.
Correct.
Fuck you.
Correct. Second, you intentionally commit a murder in the course of committing or attempting to commit aggravated kidnapping, burglary, robbery, aggravated sexual assault, arson, obstruction, or retaliation, or a terroristic threat. So basically, if you're in the middle of committing another felony...
Can you say burglary? I can't say that word.
Burglary?
Yeah, I can't say that word.
Burglary.
I just want you to say it again and again.
Okay.
She's so beautiful.
Jesus Christ.
I can't say that word.
If you commit a murder basically while you are committing another felony.
Trying to fuck somebody else up.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, you should go for sure.
So, number 3. I'm going to try and say this word once. It's in here like 14 fucking times. Basically, it means being paid. So, you commit the murder for remuneration? Basically paid. It's REMUNERATION.
No, don't do that. I'm a visual.
Oh, okay. Well, then just take the book.
I'm like a man.
Basically, if you commit a murder when you're being paid...
Oh, remuneration.
Okay.
Remuneration, guys. It's simple.
Remuneration.
I can't say burger, and
I can't say remuneration.
Whatever.
Commits a murder for
That's why we work.
remuneration or the promise of being paid, or employs another to commit murder for money or for the promise of money.
Wait, stop. What does... I'm sorry. Big words.
You commit a murder for money. So you commit a murder just
I pay you to kill Keith.
We both get death penalty under this one.
Well, he has a hefty life insurance policy. So we both go to jail and then death?
Yep. In Texas. Yep. But if I don't pay you money, not death penalty.
What if I just promise you money?
Death penalty.
Well, I thought I had to pay you.
Nope.
What?
Or employs another to commit the murder for money or the promise of money.
What I like is those people you see on the different forensic shows and different things where they sit in the car with a cop. Mm-hmm. They don't know it's a cop. Mm-hmm. And they're like, hey, you off this bitch? I'll give you $50,000.
Yeah. There was a Sword and Scale episode about that one,
Yeah.
wasn't there? That one was fucked up.
Fucked up. I mean, off the bitch. Okay. Why do we have to set money to it?
Number 4. You commit a murder while escaping or attempting to escape from a penal institution.
Penal.
Good Lord. Okay, number 5. You commit the murder while incarcerated of a person who is employed in the operation of the penal.
A penal?
institution. Yes.
Penal.
Cutting you off with alcohol. So we finish this.
Sarah needs to drink more. I need to drink
No,
less.
I just want to finish this episode.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. You commit a murder while incarcerated of a person who is employed in the operation of an institution or with the intent to establish, maintain, or participate in the combination or in the profits of a combination. So basically,
Can you King's English that shit for me?
any person who is employed at a prison. If you commit a murder of any person that is
under
at
the
prison.
employment
Yes.
of a
Whether it's a
judicial,
CO,
yes,
CO,
okay, thank you, yes, ma'am.
Or
I'm
the
sorry.
cafeteria lady, or the yard man, whatever. Commit the
Anybody
murder.
ever seen Orange is the New Black?
Yeah, they'd all murder.
Yeah.
Okay, number 6. You commit the murder while incarcerated for another murder.
Oh, you're like
That
double,
wasn't
triple
death
in on
penalty.
that. That's not death penalty?
No, though it is death penalty. So if you commit a murder that's not death penalty.
Penal.
Okay. I'm gonna have a migraine tomorrow.
It's my
I got
fault.
one now.
Okay, number 6. If you commit a murder while incarcerated for another murder, one that you didn't get the death penalty for, or you're serving a life sentence or a term of 99 years for aggravated kidnapping, sexual assault, or robbery. Or burglary, as Brandy likes.
I can't say that word.
Number 7.
Robbery.
You murder more than one person during the same criminal transaction. Or during...
Since when did murder and criminal become a transaction?
What else would you like to call it?
Filth show. Shit show. Bullshit.
Yeah, I don't think they can write shit show into the law, Brandy.
This is why I don't write laws.
Anyway, so if you murder more than one person during the same criminal transaction or during different criminal transactions, but the murders are committed pursuant to the same scheme or course of conduct.
It's beautiful when you recite Texas law.
I love reading law. Number 8, I'm going to go through this one and you're not going to make a comment because you're going to want to make a comment. Just don't. Number 8, you murder an individual under the age of 15 years old. Number 9, and last one. This is an interesting one, okay? Let's see if I'm reading this one right. Number 9, you murder another person in retaliation for or on account of the service or status of the other person as a judge or justice of the Supreme Court, Court of Criminal Appeals, Court of Appeals, a district court, a criminal district court, a constitutional county court, a statutory court, a justice court, or a municipal court. The way I read that is you get death penalty for murdering a judge, but not for the jury.
Okay, you have to King English that for me.
That's how I read it.
Okay,
Murder's
I understand
another-
how you read
Yep,
it, but
murder's another
for all
person.
of us who are not frequent in
reading law,
legalese,
another person in retaliation for or on account of the service or status of the other person as a judge or justice of the Supreme Court. So if you kill your attorney or a member of the jury who convicted you,
that's fine.
that's fine, not death
It's just I
penalty.
cannot kill
A judge.
anyone on the Texas Supreme Court or a judge
Correct.
proceeding. Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
So those are the 9 instances in Texas. So contrary to what the rest of the country thinks, if you murder someone here, you do not get the death penalty. It is only in one of those previously 9 mentioned instances do you receive the death penalty in Texas. So in 1916, Pfizer, that's how you say it, right? The drug company, Pfizer?
Yeah.
Pfizer.
Absolutely.
Banned the use of their products for lethal injections. So the number
Why?
moral reasons. So the number
Wait. Everyone back up. A pharmaceutical company would like to object to something morally?
Mm-hmm.
I'm confused.
So anyway, Pfizer banned the use of their products for lethal injections. So the number of lethal injections across the entire country has significantly gone down because states are having a really hard time getting a hold of a combination of drugs that would result in lethal injections.
Okay.
This legislative session that happened in Texas this year.
Tell me about the law, beautiful.
Well, it's not a law. So the Texas legislature did try to reform capital punishment. A bill was filed that would have made it illegal to enforce capital punishment on someone who is mentally disabled. But despite having bipartisan support, the bill did not make it through session.
Okay. Because it is virtually impossible It is this hardest offense to come up with. I'm mentally incapable of making a rational decision. I ate your face off. But I was not of insanity or a...
But I don't think it's insanity. I think you're saying that someone who has a very... I can determine they have a low IQ, they still receive capital punishment, even though they may not have had the mental faculties to know what they are doing. You're saying that person deserves capital punishment just as someone who knew what they were doing does?
Yeah, that is a hard one. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So,
no, she's right.
My opinion on capital punishment, if you want it, is that it's obviously controversial. I think we need mental health reform more than anything else.
Absolutely.
In this country.
Absolutely.
I think if someone can't be rehabilitated and they continue to be a threat to public safety, then yeah, capital punishment is probably the way to go. I mean, one of the reasons we picked this subject was because from an academic standpoint,
God, that word strikes fear in my soul.
Having someone like Ted Bundy alive that you could learn from and possibly prevent more murders of, to me, is more beneficial than just ending their life. However, Ted did show a very exceptional ability to be able to get out of prisons.
He did.
And if he had been convicted of, murder and sentenced to capital punishment in Colorado, and Colorado had the death penalty, then maybe all those poor women in Florida would not have been murdered.
So I believe that we actually can learn a lot from each of the incredibly smart, depraved serial killers. Bundy being the one we're talking about, which has sparked the different capital punishment conversations. Unfortunately, what I do not believe is that a man like Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, some of the other, Charles Manson, I don't believe there's ever a point in their own soul, spirit, or mind where they can stop the bullshit and look at me and look at you and say, here's the bottom line. I don't think they possess what God gave us. I think it's void in them to actually say, you know what, here's what I can teach you about what I did and why I did it. Would they continue to be a farce? Would they continue to crawl out of the depths of Satan's hole? Yeah, I completely believe that. So do they need to be extinguished? I'm just saying.
Maybe.
Is there probably a lot we could have learned? Sure. My favorite movie is Silence of the Lambs. Could we have learned a lot from people like that? Yes. If we had psychologists and people who understood the bullshit and could cut through the bullshit. Because the narcissistic bullshit, which they try to play over on everyone they meet, because that's literally who they are, I don't think we can get through it. Next week, we are doing
Intensity
by Dean Koontz. We're going off of the true crime.
Yep.
We're doing something a little lighthearted. It's what, 300 pages?
She just says lighthearted.
I think it's lighthearted. It's fiction.
Oh yeah, in that sense that it's fiction.
It is fiction.
It's a lot more graphic than the books we've been reading so far.
God. And thank you guys so much for joining us. Thanks for listening. Do not forget to like us on Facebook, Instagram. Please follow us on YouTube. And hey guys, stay twisted.
And dark.
And dark.
And twisted.
And well, we ain't your mama's weekday book club. We like it dark and a little messed up. A killer twist is what we love. The Twisted Night.